Have you ever pulled up to an intersection and seen somebody standing there with a cardboard sign asking for help? And you wonder, how do I even help this person? I'm in the car, they're there, I've got 5 seconds. What do we do? Food, money, something else? Are they even legit? Well, you are going to get all those questions answered today. We are interviewing an expert. He's got loads and loads and loads of experience working with the homeless, and I pepper him with a bunch of questions. Stay tuned. You are going to love it. This is the Wallet Win Podcast. Welcome to today's episode, everybody. Jonathan here from Wallet Win, and I'm very excited because today we've got a guest. It is an interview episode. Today's guest, he is the managing director of Christ in the City, an incredible organization based out of Denver, Colorado, and we'll hear a little bit about them, but he's really going to help us unpack this idea of, what do we even do? What's our responsibility toward our homeless brothers and sisters? What are we supposed to be doing? How do we do this thing? Because a lot of us, maybe we want to do something, but we don't have the experience. Well, Blake, as you will learn, definitely has the experience. He can speak out of that experience and really help us figure out what's going on. So welcome, Blake Brouillette, to the Wallet Win Podcast. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Jonathan, thank you so much. Even more than that, just good to be with you, have another conversation. Always a pleasure. So we love Wallet Win at Christ in the City and are truly, just grateful for your work and, all the little ways we can help each other. So happy to share with your listeners, share with your community about the homeless and some of this knowledge we've learned. I mean, there's so much we don't have, but just, so much we've picked up over the years of our program.
Thank you very much. And yes, and the feeling is very mutual. We're big fans of you guys over here. For our listeners maybe who aren't as familiar with Christ in the City as we are here at Wallet Win, can you just give us the quick spiel on what you're doing and how you do it?
Yeah. So Christ in the City is in Denver, Colorado, and we are a missionary formation program that serves the poor. So on a one-liner. So we bring in young adult missionaries for a year of their lives to truly form them to be lifelong missionaries and to serve the chronically homeless in Denver, Colorado. Mm-hmm. And in that, we bring in the community, right? Our mission is truly to bring in and equip and train missionaries in parishes, in communities. We just had a medical sales team come in yesterday to our lunch in the park and truly train people, bridge this gap with the chronically poor in our society. As no matter where you live, the poor are present, whether that be in a nursing home and people who are just truly, in a way, trapped and no one is there to see them, or being the streets, right, which are the most visible poor that we have in our country.
So it was interesting. I like how you said how you use the phrase chronically poor. If you could just unpack that a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, so 90% of the homeless, they actually get off the streets within a year or so. And there's this 10% of the population that is known as like service resistant. They just, the statistics show they're going to be the ones who you see on the street corners. They're going to be the ones who, it doesn't matter how good the resources in the city are, they're not going to use them. When you think of a homeless person, right, a human being that is experiencing homelessness, you think the chronically homeless. Those are the ones you see and are visible. And that 10% is who we go after in Denver. We that's just really our niche in the Denver services community.
Got it. And then, and you've been doing this, I think personally, you've been involved 7 years?
7 years.
So you've got a good bit of experience here. I'm sure just through you've had practical experience, probably also just getting into this world more. What I'd say maybe what's a misconception, a misunderstanding that you find that a lot of folks, even well-intentioned, good folks have about chronic poverty?
The first thing that comes to mind is that the homeless are any different than us. I think that's the one misconception that I I've never been asked that question, and actually in my 7 years, but I would definitely say the biggest misconception is that the homeless are different than us. When we hit the streets, even at their basic level, like our friends on the street, man, they have mothers and fathers. Every single
Mm.
one of them has a mother and a father. Most of them have siblings. A lot of them have children. And at its basic core, like we are the same, right? It's like
Mm.
the stories and where they're at right now in life may not be the same, but the homeless have such a wealth of experience. And, almost every single one of them has had a job or a career, right?
Mm.
They've traveled. Just, we are not so different than the poor. And I don't know why that or where that misconception came from. And frankly, it doesn't matter, but it is a misconception that we have. And I had my
Mm.
first day. When I went out to the streets for the first time, I thought I was going to talk to, like, truly, I wouldn't have said this at the time, but like a foreign people, someone who I just
Mm.
couldn't relate to at all or had no ability to understand. And it's like, huh, no, we're both on Colfax Avenue in Denver, Colorado, and you have a mom and a dad. I have a mom and a dad. You have siblings. I have siblings. Like, you realize, oh my goodness, we're like, you've been broken, you've been hurt and have been broken in life. I have hurts, I'm broken in life. Like,
Mhm.
we are so similar.
Yeah, I've thought about it. Um, and then all sorts of different things, when I start thinking about whether it's, and I will say certainly in relation to folks involved with Christ in the City, very limited interaction with the poor, with the homeless, or really when I have that temptation, it's poor, homeless, and then not to say that I'm saying there's probably separate categories, but like people in folks in jail or
Hmm.
criminals or
Hmm.
just people experiencing a life that I don't have a
Yeah,
part of, at least so far. Um, there I have felt that temptation of of there's something different or whatever, but then I come back to and I just have this image in my head, like every one of us, we were this little baby being held, loved on, and we grew up, we were and of course some folks are in just tough situations and maybe even from the beginning, but I'd say for a big chunk of humanity, like the 3-year-old me was very similar to the 3-year-old most other people, and just like who we were and like, and that
yeah,
kind of
oh
thing.
yeah,
And at some point in life, something happened and the, the support, however it was, family or whatever, just wasn't there. Maybe when there was a time in my life when something happened and, our roads maybe started to diverge a little bit in what our lives looked like. But in like you're saying, the fundamental level, it's the same. Like we are living, like, the further away you get, right? I forget what this is. It's just this is somebody else's idea I saw somewhere. I think it was just like a comic strip or something. But
they're
like
full
you
of
start
wisdom, not
off and like
surprised.
it can be, um, like me and maybe the crosstown rivals or whatever, right? And then you zoom out and we're both from the same state. And then you zoom out and we're both from the same country. Then you zoom out and we're all earthlings.
Yeah,
Uh, and it's just like the further back you peel it, so like the further back you maybe the less specific parts of our lives that you were looking at, like you get down to it. Yep, we are all people living on this rock, trying to make the best of what we've got. And when you've encountered folks, right, doing that in maybe a different uh, set of situations or something than a lot of us listening to this are used to. Um, I think a lot of us we hear about it. Maybe we see it firsthand. If we let ourselves look, maybe we see it more. But you have this fantastic firsthand experience with with folks in this situation. What's the response that comes up? Because I know a lot of us, I think, we know that shouldn't be happening. We know that's, less than that person deserves, or as, we want better, but we don't know what to do or how to do it or what's appropriate or not. So I think that's maybe the big part of the conversation here. If there's anything you want to tackle first, that's fine. But just what's the response that we should have there?
Yeah, and I think what you said is my experience and Christ in the City's experience in general. People want to help. Very rarely, deep down, do we encounter our volunteers, people who ask for advice. Almost everyone has a desire to help. Like you listening to this probably have a desire to help. The biggest issue is you don't know what to do. And
Mm,
that's the thing, is like that's what we found, is it's not a lack of desire. We have not seen a lack of desire in people in who have reached out to us. It is truly this just helplessness of like, not in a negative way, of just truly like there seems to be so much to do because this problem is so large. Like, where do I even begin? Right.
mhm,
And that's actually one of the first things, is like, man, as Americans, we have a fix it mentality, right? Like, and we are darn good at that. It's like, you see a problem, you know, buckle down, like go fix the problem, right? And that's how we've grown up. That's the culture we're around. And when
mhm,
we see the problem of homelessness and insert any huge issue in our society or the world, it seems so large, it's daunting, and frankly, sometimes it's just overwhelming and it's easier to not even look at it. It's easier to
mm,
not even begin. And I think first thing we tell people, just when you see a homeless person, just look them in the eye and smile. Maybe you're not
mm,
ready to say anything. Maybe you're not ready to do anything. That's okay. But just looking and smiling, I mean, that can make someone's day. That can completely change
mm,
their world in that moment, right? And I think it's one too where we have to admit, like, when we begin, like, what are we wanting? Are we thinking we're going to solve this problem completely? Because if so, it's like, yeah, you're right, that
mm,
may not be worth even beginning. But if we can all just contribute just a little bit, right? It's like we're not gonna. No one person is gonna solve this. Um, we're speaking very large, like trying to fix Earth's problems, like you said there. But no, it's truly, we just really encourage people to just be convinced that you can do something and it's worth looking at and starting.
mhm. Now let me ask you this, and I'm gonna say a lot of these questions. At least the questions. There's some questions I want to get into, and some of them are certainly. I'd say maybe most of them. I have found at least in a small way the seed of them in my own heart. So I'll admit to that because some of them are kind of ugly questions. Other ones are things I've heard
Yeah,
or maybe wondered about, or is like I'm trying to also just put myself in the place of a person listening to this or watching this, and then maybe excuse me, and then a question they might have, um and then also, right, you talked about like it's this big problem and we're afraid we can't solve it, and so maybe it's something I find at least in other parts of my life. It's like, okay, well, that's a big one. I'm gonna ignore it. I'm gonna
yep,
pretend it doesn't
yep.
exist, and then I don't have to worry about it. And maybe that's that, and the dehumanization of folks living in poverty or whatever it is. Like, it helps me not have to worry about it. But let's get past that idea. But so anyway, here's this question. Here's the question I've been leading up to is you say, hey, just you can start, just look at them, give them a smile. There's part of me, and this is maybe the timid or the me looking for an excuse part of me, says, okay, this guy is standing on the street corner. I just got off the highway exit, or I'm pulling out of this parking lot or whatever it is. They have this sign up, and it's clearly asking for food or money. And whether or not I want to give it to them or not, or if I just don't have any cash on me and I don't have any food in my car, like I just can't, whatever the reason is, um, if I look at them, if I make eye contact, I smile, but then I don't follow through or complete, what they're asking for, are they going to, I feel like this isn't the me trying not to offend them, but really trying to say, like, not offend myself, but like, am I going to disappoint them? Am I going to let them down? Are they going to be mad at me, angry at me because I didn't like give them what they're asking for?
I think it's always a risk, but you know what? Most of the time, what we found, so after that initial, you look at the person,
Mm-hmm.
say hello, offering your name is not something they're going to put on a sign. Our
Mm,
friends are not going to put like, what I really actually want isn't food or water.
mm,
Once I have food or water, frankly, like the necessities of life, which are essential, it'd be really nice to know somebody. You're not going to put that on a sign. And what we
mm,
found is many of the homeless we talked to would much rather have someone who knows their name, who says hi to them daily on the interstate exit or the highway exit, than even someone who gives them a material possession.
mm.
Right? Because we've had friends tell us they've gone months without hearing their own name. Not anyone, like, could you imagine that?
Mm,
Going even a day without one person saying your name and just like knowing like even the basics of your identity, your name, right? So it's like, yes, we say, like it'd be great to offer them, when people, I'll jump to a question you're probably going to ask, do you give money? It's like we say, you know what, we're never going to tell you yes or no to those things, but what we're going to
mm,
tell you is there's a better option, right? Like a better option than money would be something like having water bottles in your car for the homeless on hot days, or hand warmers for the cold days, or little
mm,
snacks. Um, but even better than that is rolling down your window saying, hey, I'm Blake. What's your name? Something so simple, yet so profound and can truly change the life of that person. And then guess
mm,
what? I can't tell you the amount of stories of mothers and fathers and their families who have said, we did that. And now we have a homeless friend on the stoplight of so and so street. And man, my kids can't wait to see him every day. And the homeless friend lights up. And it's
mm.
like, that is one thing you can do to contribute to this problem of homelessness, right?
Yeah.
And you're right, you're not fulfilling what's on their sign. But I can't, it's maybe happened a handful of times in my 7 years that I've done
Mm,
that someone was upset with me. Usually they'll say, great to meet you. Or like, nah, I don't want to talk today. And it's like, you know
mhm,
what?
mhm,
When we give a gift to someone, we don't give like caring how they're going to respond. We do because we lack purity of heart in ways, right? So we
mm,
want to give them our name and we're like afraid because, like you said, like, well, what if they get mad at me? You're not in charge of that. It's like when I pull up on a stop sign. I hope I'm not sounding harsh, but like it's like we're not in charge of their reaction. Our missionaries,
mhm,
when they go to the streets, man, we get rejected so much, so much.
mm,
But what's crazy is like we try to have this disposition of our hearts that whether someone wants to talk to us for an hour or someone doesn't even want to talk to us and may yell at us to get away, the initial gift we gave them is the same, right?
mm.
That's all we can control. Was my initial gift. They control the response, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so it's like not necessarily like just realizing like, gosh, I'm not going to fulfill what this guy wants from his sign. And it's like, it's a risk. It's a risk when our missionaries go to the streets and go walk up to a stranger and say hello. They're offering him a gift though, right? And that gift is your first gift to that person you meet, right? It's like my gift to you is this awkward moment. My gift to you is my awkwardness trying to say hi, you know, and how they receive that, we can thankfully detach ourselves from, you know, and of course it's okay to be like bummed if they don't want to talk, and but
Mhm,
really it's like that's the nature of a gift. And I think that's
mm,
something that we try to really instill in our missionaries. And I found in my own life when I approach the homeless in that way, oh my gosh, am I so much like I feel free, right? I feel free to respond to what's there rather than a little worried or nervous or but I still get anxious too. We all have that. No matter how many parties we've been to, Christmas parties just got over and it's like introducing yourself to the new person. I wonder if that'll ever go away. Is that little nervousness?
yeah. um, that's fantastic, man. Just I would say that gift of depending on your personality, but probably for most everybody, that gift that costs something.
Oh yeah. Oh
To
yeah.
in a sense give yourself. in that interaction. And again, it just again trying to just get the questions out there, to just again just kind of bring it up so we can push it away. Somebody's like, oh, well, I'm just at the stoplight, or it's gonna turn. And as soon as I put that window down, it's probably gonna turn. I'm gonna have to go. Is it even worth it if all I can say is like, hi, and like kind of move on? Just to kind of bring that up to. What do you say? What do you say
Yeah,
to that
there was
objection of
like,
like, there's just not enough time. I'm gonna have 2 seconds here.
man, no, seriously, like that sounds so, again, it sounds so small in our eyes, but that may not be small in the person's eyes that you make that gesture to, right? It's like for us, that seems insignificant. For them, how many people have done that today?
Mm,
You know? And so it's one of those where it's like, yes, is it solving the big, like, to the answer of, is this solving all their problems? No, not at all. Like that, we just have to admit that. But
mhm.
man, it can make a difference. Those little interactions, right? Maybe they were just
Yeah.
having a rough day and no one, like, they've been yelled at, or they've been
Mhm.
like, we don't know what this person's gone through, just like they don't know what we've gone through, right? Um, and does it make a difference? I think it was we heard once that they did like a study, and it was like, would you rather have $20 or someone know your name? Like I said already, it's like,
Mm,
and overwhelmingly, the results of this study among the homeless was like they would much rather have someone know their name than them give them $20.
mhm.
And it's like, so that right there is like boom. All right, like let's let's just give it a shot.
That's cool. Here's a question, and I'll say this. So I grew up in, I don't know, I wouldn't say small town, Pennsylvania. It wasn't quite a suburb. It was a town, but out east. It was in Pennsylvania. So out east, there's just towns that have always been, and they're just small, so they're not necessarily a suburb anyway. So I was in that environment, neighborhood, nice neighborhoods and stuff. Then, in college, went bigger places, and then as a missionary with Focus, I for a year lived in New York City, and before that, I taught summer school in New York City. So there, right, like
Oh yeah.
I encountered, um, you know, poverty, right? Or there's guys, sleeping on the sidewalk. Um, just like you can't not run
It's
into
there.
it if you have your eyes open.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't live in New York City or a place like that. I live in Omaha, Nebraska now, and I'd say the biggest or the most. I'm sure right, there's poverty all over and all around us, but I'd say the most visible
Uh-huh.
um, times where it comes up. And again, I don't get out to work from home. We homeschool. Like I don't get out
You're a
all the time.
homebody,
I'm
Jonathan.
out and about
You're
less than average people probably. So the way when I encounter the folks, when I see it, um, like the visible stuff, it'll be most often, like the interstate exit,
Mhm.
or the kind of just the very edges of a parking lot or something, where they're not going to get yelled at or whatever.
Yeah.
um Particular busy street corners, or
Mhm.
like the corner where I would stop before I turn in to the Home Depot or the Target or whatever.
Yeah.
um and you do, like you said, you have there's folks that have that kind of that friend they see often, because if you do pay enough attention, like a lot of times it is like the same person
Yeah.
at that street
Yeah.
corner. um and so that's always, it's just a different form or whatever. I don't know if there's anything to speak into there, but and this is maybe the big question here, and I've never seen this, but I feel like we all have heard it from somebody who saw it, or heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody who saw it, of like, oh yeah, this guy got dropped off in this really nice car and like took off, his really nice clothes and put on his ones full of holes, and now he's got the sign, or like, and like it's just some like racket or whatever. Um and you know what, I don't underestimate the capacity for humans to try to trick other humans. But I know that would be crazy to think that, oh yeah, if somebody's out there with a sign, they're probably making more than you. Kind of an idea. I think that's crazy. So just, I guess, to whenever that comes up, like, because I can't say, oh well, in all my experience, blah blah blah. Like, what's the response to that, to an idea like that?
Yeah. Yeah. No. So I think it was an article a few years ago. I think it was a guy in St. Louis. I can't remember. It was something like that. No, it happens, and of course those make huge headlines, and
Mm.
it makes sense. And I mean, we don't like being deceived. We don't like being lied to. We don't like being tricked, right? And this goes more to like proper thought patterns of how to view a situation like that.
Mm.
It's like we hear of, and again, these are examples. I'm not trying to compare them, but it's like, maybe our favorite restaurant has food poisoning somewhere on the East Coast, so we don't just totally never eat at that restaurant again, right? It's like one of those where it's like, oh yeah, well that makes sense. It's food. It can be poisoned. It's like, oh yeah, you got food poisoning. Great. Well, I'm still going to eat there. And when we look at
Mhm.
the homeless, again, remembering we like aren't so different than them. Huh? Shocker. Someone took advantage of people's charity, right? Like we hear these scams nonstop right now, right? These phishing scams, these
Mm.
scams from pastors, like, but at the same time, it's like, well, that doesn't mean we don't give to a pastor or someone,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or like an overseas mission just because one of them was a scam. And I'll tell you what though, it's easy to lump the homeless into that kind of thought, right?
Mm.
Um, and it's more just thinking properly about it because you're right. And does it happen? Listen, I've never once encountered that in my 7 years. I don't know any
Mm.
missionary who's encountered that. Just in the streets of Denver. Does it happen? Sure, it does. I like honestly, like people exploit people. Like we are
Mhm.
in a fallen world. Sin is real. I'm not surprised. But yeah, if that is what's like holding you back, and I think that's valid, right? Like we don't like being lied to, we don't like being tricked, but just kind of like maybe think through it. Like think through the bigger picture of like, okay, like sometimes comparing to other situations in life can help us be like, am I
Mm.
thinking properly about this issue or is that crazy? Right? It's like, and honestly, if it was rampant, if that was a rampant scam people were doing, great. Don't like truly like, okay, then it would be wise to not serve the homeless in that way. But if it's something
Mhm.
where it's like, well, there's like a slim chance, maybe a chance of a chance, it's like just like really reasoning through that, right? Using proper thought, logic, and yeah, just like mind,
Mhm.
like really thinking through it. Because frankly, like yeah, I think of all the social security scams right now, right? I don't know if you've had a podcast on scams, but boy, are they prevalent in the financial realm right now.
Yes, they are.
But yeah, it's one where it's like in my 7 years, I've never seen it, and that's what I can say. And I've talked to a lot of homeless people, and our missionaries have talked to exponentially more.
Yeah. Um, when here's a question, so again, and it's surprising. I'm so willing to say, oh yeah, maybe I've never seen anybody who's trying to scam. Who knows? I don't
Yeah,
know.
totally.
But let's say, if I am trying to think about it, right? And if I think, okay, well, I see the same person, the same place
Hmm.
all the time, the same corner, the same intersection, the same parking lot, whatever it is. Um, and again, because their life is such a in one way, yes, we are so very, very so similar. In another way, like some of the circumstances of their life are so unknown to me,
Yeah,
right? I just don't understand. I don't know. So in my mind, maybe I'm trying to fill in the blanks here of like, well, why would they always be in the same place? Like, what is that? What is that a sign of? Is it a sign that there's maybe like that they do, they live near there and that's just where they go, or is it a sign that it doesn't seem like it'd be a sign? Oh yeah, maybe that's just like is a sign that it's fake or anything,
yeah.
but
No, so again, I think one thing we talked about earlier. Well, maybe I didn't mention this actually yet, but it's like that 10%, the chronically homeless you're
mm,
seeing in those moments, they probably know where the resources are, right? Like
mm,
they usually know where the resources are. There's most likely a caseworker, unless they're brand new, there's most likely a caseworker who's talked to them.
mm,
Yet that 10%, right, that we talked about, that we go after specifically, these service resistant, like there's something bigger in the way to them getting off the streets.
mm,
And I will tell you this, like, it's probably not money, right?
mhm,
It's probably a way deeper issue. And again, I think there was one study, and it was like for someone to go from homeless to like housed and thriving, they needed like 12 friends. It was like it is something like that. And that is like when you look at the like we've had friends who got into housing and they literally it was like a nightmare. They got off the streets, were in a four-walled house with no one who loved them, no visitors ever. Nothing changed other than they actually knew where they were going to sleep that night. They knew where their water was going to come from, and they were even more miserable than they were on the streets. Because for that chronically homeless, the deepest issue of their homelessness is ruptured relationships, right? Broken relationships, this lack of friends and support. And I always put myself in that spot. And if I'm like, if I was on the streets and I had nothing to go to, like, didn't know of anyone who loved me, it'd be kind of nice. You just put yourself there and then do that thought exercise of like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if a house would be good, but you know what would be
Yeah.
good is like someone coming up and saying, hey. And we have so many friends at Christ in the City, and so many who it's like when they finally were convinced that they could get off the streets was when they felt they were worth it. And sometimes that person on that street corner doesn't feel worth it. Maybe they've like to admit you're homeless that's a tough thing, right? And a lot of people lose their own dignity in that, as in they don't believe it's there, but it is. And it's our
Mhm.
job, right, to encourage them. And again, that doesn't mean giving them large sums of money to change their lives. Like, this. I mean, you do your finances for a living. It's like money won't change your life, right? It's like it can be a part of it, but it's like no, money's not the solution, you know? Well, but relationships are worth
Mhm.
so much more than money,
Yeah.
so much
So,
more.
whether it's let's say I'm driving up, I see somebody there, I'm at the corner. Um, we talked about, yeah, roll down the window, say hi, try to engage a conversation, give that gift of yourself. Um, for folks, and I certainly encourage all of us to do that. For folks who want to do more, who want to give something, is there, you talked about, water bottles on the hot day, hand warmers. That's
Hmm.
never would have thought of hand warmers, but duh, like that's I know how much I have appreciated a hand
Yeah.
warmer when I'm outside. So that's a great idea. Are there, and again, I know you've said, like, I'm not going to say yes, no, there's not one right way, because there's so many different people, so many different people you'll be interacting with, all of that. But in general, like, what are somebody who wants to help? Again, it's not for lack of desire. What are like some more of like this, the more useful, more helpful things that we can be doing?
Yeah. Again, I think we do this again, a thought exercise with our missionaries and a lot of our volunteers, and we're like, what would the world look like if every homeless person had one friend, right? And if that friend was you, right? And it's this idea of like, if you are in a place of chronic homelessness, it's truly just like the first thing you can do is just being aware of it and like acknowledging their existence, right? Like, imagine if everyone was friendly with the homeless person. And some of them, yeah, we get it. Like, I listen, I've been yelled at, but like just giving that gift and detaching from it, right? But you want more. And I will say, a lot of times, like, unless we're willing to like do it as a career or those kind of things, like, it's tricky because it's an investment. To invest in someone's life, maybe you've had loved ones, your listeners have had loved ones who it's like, wow, they need a lot of help, and it's an investment, right? But I'll tell you, the first thing you can do is just like look to your left, look to your right, who is your neighbor, and love them, right? Like, almost even like being a solution to stopping homelessness, of just
Mm.
helping those who are in need. And I'm not saying monetarily, like truly just being there for, if you're working from home, homeschooling, like just making sure you're loving your kids the best they can. Like, Mother Teresa's Where's Your Calcutta? I got to be careful
Mhm.
or I'll get on a 20-minute rant about this one, but it's like we want that to look attractive, right? Like for most of your listeners, the most that they're going to be able to do in their own Calcutta is truly just like hand warmers, water bottles, socks, and then if you're getting really interested, going and volunteering maybe at local shelters, soup lines or soup kitchens, like that's to answer your question directly. But what I'd
Hmm.
say is everyone is called to serve the poor. But who are the poor, right? Like your children are technically poor if you're to abandon them. You know what I mean? Like how can they take care of themselves? So like
Hmm.
your gift is taking care of your children and your wife and then your neighbors and your clients and whoever you're working with. And like maybe from there it's like, well, my kids, like we don't have homeless in our area, so it's maybe we'll go to a nursing home, or maybe you're in a place with no homeless but huge incarceration rates. So maybe it's like, maybe I'll start writing letters to people in prisons or even visiting from time to time. It's like finding the poor wherever you are, right?
Hmm.
And but it first starts with making sure your own house is in order, right?
Hmm.
But it's not as attractive. I mean, let's be honest. It sounds way better like going and, well, maybe not better, but it just sounds way more attractive to do something radical for that homeless person there, right?
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, like if that is where your heart is being drawn, seriously consider reaching out to your local homeless shelters or like that is a special desire on your heart, and you should take that seriously. But if it's one where it's like, like that, a little more hesitant, it's okay because guess what? Your neighbors, like, I always think about this. I'm like, when was the last time I said hi to my next door neighbor? And COVID kind of did change this. It really did.
Yeah.
Where we were a little more cautious. Like, man, I can think of a neighbor on my block right now. I'm like, geez, Blake, get it together. Who I haven't even introduced myself to. And it's like, man, that'd be good. Because if they're having a hard time, maybe they don't have anyone to go to.
Mm.
And I don't know, that just like that proactive desire to just build relationships. And you know yeah, I don't know if that answered your question at all, but hey, it was a
That's
good
good.
little
That's good.
rant.
And I'd say maybe just another question or two here, but just one here of certainly there's certain activities. Maybe there's a continuum of just getting more involved and things like that, right? Like if I'm just gonna pull a Christ in the City in the park, right? I'm just gonna go like walk around. I'm gonna find some people who are out and just start chatting them up. That's one level of
Hmm.
it's pretty. There's a lot of commitment of myself there. Rolling down the window is someone giving that same gift of myself, but it's shorter.
Yeah.
I'm still in the car, things like that, and I'm thinking about this. Some folks might have this want at least in their mind, of or they're just their emotions or something. They're trying to balance like um, giving that gift of self and like personal safety
Hmm.
and just tips you've got there, insights there, for folks trying to think about that. I'd say maybe in particularly, women.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Great question, Jonathan. Yeah, that's something very important to bring up. So we like to tell our missionaries, like, never go by yourself. Like,
mhm,
truly. I mean, it's different from a car, right? If you're gonna give something, that's fine. Like, don't be worried about that. But if you're gonna be walking around or like, trying to encounter a homeless person or really anyone, like just basic safety, right? It's like, don't go by yourself.
yeah,
Especially women, make sure there's a male there. We found with our missionaries, if we send a group of guys to go, on a homeless outreach day, it is bad news because the guys just immediately are like intimidated. If three guys approach some
mm,
person, it just looks sketchy. No matter how, it just doesn't look good. The
mm,
moment we put a woman in the group, oh my gosh, that feminine genius, like it changes the whole dynamic. You could have five guys and one woman, and it just totally changes it. So we always try to have a man and a woman, but the women we always like, no, never go alone, never go alone, because unfortunately some of the homeless we work with, some of our friends even, just didn't learn proper boundaries or proper
mm,
ways to talk to women. And by having a male there, it's able to not just be a buffer but be that male presence, and it's amazing how much more the women are respected. So basic safety, never go by yourself. Um, Even more than that, like trust your intuition. If it looks
Mm.
like a sketchy situation, it's probably a sketchy situation. Like don't don't try to be Batman. It's like just truly like trust your intuition and be aware of your surroundings. Big one is just like be aware. If it's Whole Foods parking lot, that's a totally different location than if it is downtown, 1 a.m. and it's a dark street. Like right, like it's like there is a difference. And really just yeah, I mean, if you can't, are you going to be? And this is that kind of like you're never 100% safe doing anything.
Mm.
So it's like we never know. Anything can happen. So it's not like just make sure it's safe. It's like, well, that's a weird thing. We can't guarantee anyone's safety at any time. Almost. You have kids. You've probably seen them do crazy things. You're like, I thought I was
Mhm.
watching. So it's just like just being aware, realizing like yeah, it's you're giving them this gift, right? You're giving them this gift, and you have to take care of yourself first in that. So making sure that it's a good situation, and yeah, especially for those more intense encounters than just like handing something out through a window.
Mhm. That's fantastic advice. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um, this has been incredible. I'm just looking at the recording here. It's been 40 minutes.
time flew,
Uh,
man.
it definitely has
We could have
flown.
done another
It's
hour.
been incredible to learn about this. Thank you so much. For folks, there's been so many great pieces of information and action items, all these things for people,
Yeah,
if they want to do something. I think most folks know what to do. If they want to take it to that next level, they want to get more involved. It's just this really struck a chord in their hearts with them today. Um, how can they learn more about Christ in the City and what you do?
yeah, totally. So first and foremost, I'd suggest you check out our website. We have excellent videos. We have testimonies of our homeless friends. We have training videos. If you're interested in making those care kits to hand out through your window or even like wanting to have the encounter, we actually have one video on how to go about making care kits and handing them out to the homeless, and another training video on how to have an encounter. So you can find that all on our website. Here are missionaries' testimonies, the homeless. If you're interested in financially supporting us, of course, feel free. We'd love to have you join our community and serve the poor alongside of us. But we also have a really fun social media presence. So on Facebook and Instagram, we have some wonderful posts, inspiring, funny, all the gamut of the emotions.
Fantastic. And the address for your website
Sorry,
is?
www.christinthecity.org. So that's
Of course.
christinthecity.org. Very simple.
Awesome. So yeah, you can check them out. I definitely recommend looking into those resources that they have. Christ in the City does fantastic work, and with their help, you can even do some amazing stuff in your community as well. So thank you again, Blake, for stopping by, for being our guest today. It's been a real honor and a blessing. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a privilege. Thank you so much, Jonathan.